One nut shuts down your erections, another reignites them overnight. They told you nuts are healthy, but here's the shocking truth no one dares to say out loud. After 60, some of the most common nuts in your kitchen could be quietly sabotaging your erections, pushing up your blood pressure, clouding your memory, and even damaging your kidneys in silence. And the worst part? Most men your age eat them every single day, thinking they're doing their body a favor. My name is Dr. Mark Taver. For over 30 years, I've been helping men and women in their 60s, 70s, and beyond regain their energy, sharpen their minds, and yes, even restore their vitality in the bedroom. Over and over, I've seen how the right foods can bring life back, while the wrong ones steal it away, slowly and quietly. Now, what if I told you there are 4 specific nuts that actually boost circulation, fire up brain power, balance blood sugar, and even help you sleep deeper, and yet almost no one over 60 eats them on a regular basis? Meanwhile, there are 4 others, marketed as healthy, that are secretly fueling inflammation, messing with your medications, and quietly putting your heart at risk. You deserve to know the difference. In this video, I'll walk you through all 8, the 4 you should eat every single day, and the 4 you should never touch again, all backed by science, all tailored to your body after 60. And stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal the single most dangerous nut of them all, one that's been linked to memory loss and even liver damage, and it may be sitting in your pantry right now. Before we dive in, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another health lesson made just for men over 60. And if this message hits home for you, drop a 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 and let me know how I can better serve your health and well-being. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the 4 powerhouse nuts you should eat every day. These aren't just snacks, they're natural medicine for your heart, your brain, your energy, and yes, even your performance behind closed doors. Let's break them down one by one and why they matter more than ever after 60.1. Brazil nuts, your thyroid and testosterone igniter. I'll never forget one of my patients, a retired firefighter in his mid-60s. Let's call him Jack. He came into my office drained, foggy-headed, and frustrated with his lack of energy and fading performance. He'd tried powders, pills, every diet you can imagine, but nothing brought back the spark he used to feel. So we ran a full blood panel, and sure enough, his selenium levels were dangerously low. Now, most men over 60 don't even think about selenium, but it plays a massive role in how we feel, think, and function. Here's where it gets interesting. I told Jack to do something ridiculously simple. Eat 1 Brazil nut a day. That's it. No prescription, no complicated plan. 3 weeks later, Jack walked back into my office looking like a different man. His face had more color, his eyes were brighter. He leaned in with a grin and said, "Doc, I don't know what's in that nut, but I feel alive again." That's the power of Brazil nuts. They're the single richest natural source of selenium on Earth. Just 1 nut gives you over 130% of your daily requirement. And unlike synthetic supplements, the selenium in Brazil nuts is bound to organic compounds, making it easier for your aging body to absorb and use. Selenium is critical for activating thyroid hormones that regulate everything. As we age, the thyroid has a tendency to slow down, dragging energy levels with it. That's when fatigue creeps in, your hands feel cold, the weight won't budge, and that spark of youth starts to dim. But here's the key most men never hear. Selenium helps keep the thyroid firing from the inside out, and that's just the beginning. Selenium is absolutely vital for testosterone production, yet almost no one realizes it. And low testosterone isn't just about a fading sex drive. It drains your strength, wrecks your sleep, kills motivation, and even dulls the sharpness of your mind. Brazil nuts quietly support your body's ability to produce and balance this critical hormone, naturally, safely, and powerfully. But here's what makes this nut truly remarkable: its ability to protect your nerves. The fats in Brazil nuts help maintain something called your myelin sheath, the protective coating around your nerves that keeps your reflexes quick and your movements smooth. Without it, you slow down, you think slower, you begin to feel disconnected from the body you once knew so well. Protecting that sheath is one of the most important things you can do as you age, and Brazil nuts play a direct role in doing just that. Now, I always warn my patients, more is not better. Too much selenium over time can become toxic. That's why I recommend no more than 1, maybe 2 Brazil nuts a day. Keep them in the fridge, ideally still in their shell, and chew them well. It's a tiny ritual with a massive return. You don't need another bottle of pills. You just need the wisdom of nature and the discipline to use it, the same way Jack did. And if just one nut can wake up your thyroid, recharge your testosterone, and protect your nerves, imagine what happens when you add the next one to your daily routine. This one I call the silent guardian of your heart and your brain. And yet, most men over 60 don't even realize they're missing it. Let's talk about it now. Do almonds, the protector of your heart and your mind. There's something deeply comforting about almonds. Maybe it's the familiar crunch or that subtle sweetness that lingers after every bite. For me, almonds take me back to my father. Every single morning, without fail, he would sit by the window with a hot cup of tea and a small bowl of raw almonds. Not one day missed. He'd smile and say, "These little things keep my mind sharp, son." Back then, I didn't fully understand the science, but now, after decades of medicine and research on aging, I know my father was absolutely right. Almonds are one of the most overlooked, yet most powerful allies for seniors' health. They aren't just a snack, they're a daily defense system for 2 of the most vulnerable parts of your aging body, your bones and your brain. Let's start with your bones. After 60, and especially beyond 65, bone density begins to drop sharply. Falls become more dangerous, fractures take longer to heal, and something as simple as a small misstep can turn into months of painful recovery. Almonds are packed with calcium, nearly 100 milligrams in just a quarter cup. But what really sets them apart is their magnesium. Magnesium acts like a traffic controller, shuttling calcium into your bones where it belongs, instead of letting it clog your arteries. That rare combination of calcium and magnesium in one food makes almonds unique. Now, let's talk about your brain. Every year, I see more and more patients who fear memory loss even more than heart disease, and for good reason. Alzheimer's, dementia, brain fog, they don't just steal your thoughts, they steal your independence. And that's not all. Almonds are rich in fiber, about 3.5 grams per serving, which helps fight constipation, a problem nearly half of seniors quietly struggle with every day. Regularity may not sound glamorous, but let me tell you, it changes everything. From your energy to your mood, digestion plays a bigger role in your well-being than most people realize. That's why I often recommend 15 to 20 almonds a day. Raw or dry roasted, unsalted, and always well chewed, especially important for seniors with dental issues or swallowing difficulties. This step matters. Take your time. Make it a conscious habit. I tell my patients, you're not just eating a nut, you're investing in your mobility, your clarity, and your future dignity. Almonds are your silent protectors, and once you make them part of your daily ritual, your body begins to notice. Steadier steps, sharper thoughts, better days. But what if I told you there's a nut that literally looks like your brain, one that might be nature's most powerful weapon against memory loss, a nut that improves circulation and may even help you sleep through the night? That's what's coming next. 3. Walnuts, the brain's favorite food. There's a moment I'll never forget. Years ago, I visited a patient named Harold, a retired music teacher in his 70s who had just lost his wife. He was battling not only grief, but also a troubling decline in memory. He forgot names, misplaced his keys, even felt disoriented driving home from familiar places. During our visit, he opened his kitchen cabinet and pulled out a small glass jar. Inside were walnuts. He looked at me and said, "I read somewhere they're good for the brain. And look, they even look like a brain." That stuck with me. Not just because it was true, but because Harold, in his quiet, determined way, was trying to fight back. And science backs him up. Walnuts are extraordinary. They're mage. More than a snack, they're one of the most powerful brain-supporting foods nature has ever given us. Structurally, yes, they resemble the brain, but chemically they go even deeper. Walnuts are rich in alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 that helps build and maintain the membranes around brain cells. As we age, those membranes lose flexibility. Neurons don't communicate as quickly, memory blurs, but omega-3s help keep those connections strong. And that's just the beginning. Walnuts are loaded with polyphenols, antioxidants powerful enough to cross the blood-brain barrier and directly calm inflammation inside brain tissue. Why does this matter? Because inflammation is the silent killer of memory, focus, and cognition. It's one of the main drivers behind dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And unlike most foods, walnuts target that inflammation right at its source. One study published in the Journal of Nutrition showed that seniors who ate just 40 grams of walnuts a day for 8 weeks experienced measurable improvements in processing speed and mental flexibility. These aren't abstract numbers, they're real results. That's the difference between catching the punchline of a loved one's joke, remembering a birthday, or staying fully engaged in a conversation. But here's something most people don't realize. Walnuts also contain natural melatonin, the very hormone your body produces to regulate sleep. As we age, melatonin levels decline. That's why so many older men struggle with restless nights, shallow sleep, and poor recovery. But for many of my patients, simply adding a small handful of walnuts in the evening helps them fall asleep faster and wake up feeling more restored. I usually recommend 7 to 9 walnut halves a day. Keep them in the fridge to protect their delicate oils, because those oils can go rancid when exposed to heat or light. And don't shy away from that slightly bitter skin. That's where many of the antioxidants hide. Think of it as a built-in shield of protection with every bite. Harold, the retired music teacher I told you about, still eats his walnuts faithfully, and while he'll never stop missing his late wife, he told me recently that his memory feels sharper, his focus steadier, and his sense of self a little more intact. Walnuts won't transform your life overnight, but over time, they quietly defend the most precious thing you own, your mind. And if walnuts are brain food, then the next nut is the unsung hero for your blood pressure, your eyesight, and your blood sugar all at once. Most people overlook it, but once you understand what it can do, you'll never see it the same way again. Let's talk about it. Pistachios, defense for your attention, your vision, and your blood sugar. When I was a boy, my grandfather kept an old wooden bowl on the kitchen counter. Every afternoon he'd sit in his armchair with a handful of pistachios, cracking them open one by one. Back then, I didn't think much of it, just a quiet habit of an aging man. But now, with everything we know about nutrition and aging, I realize he was doing something incredibly wise. Without even knowing the science, he was protecting his blood pressure, his eyesight, and even his body's ability to manage sugar. That bowl of pistachios wasn't just a snack, it was a daily dose of defense. Pistachios are, without question, one of the most underrated superfoods for seniors. They're often overshadowed by flashier options, but what they lack in hype, they more than make up for in function. For starters, they're loaded with potassium, about 285 milligrams in a single serving, more than many fruits and vegetables. And potassium is critical for keeping blood pressure under control, especially after 60, when arteries stiffen and salt sensitivity increases. For older adults trying to manage hypertension naturally, pistachios are a smart and safe ally. They're also rich in 2 powerful carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin. These compounds concentrate in the retina, filtering harmful blue light and slowing the progression of age-related macular degeneration. That's no small thing. Vision loss is one of the most feared conditions in seniors, and pistachios offer steady, gentle support to keep your world sharp and colorful. But maybe most important of all, Pistachios are surprisingly powerful for blood sugar control. With about 3 grams of fiber per ounce and a naturally low glycemic index, they help slow digestion, blunt sugar spikes after meals, and keep insulin levels steady. For the millions of seniors living with diabetes or prediabetes, swapping just one handful of pistachios into your day can quietly make a real difference, especially when it takes the place of those sugary, processed snacks. And there's another hidden benefit most people never think about. When you eat pistachios still in their shells, the act of cracking them slows you down. That tiny pause gives your body more time to register fullness, making it easier to avoid overeating. The empty shells themselves serve as a visual marker, reminding you how much you've eaten without ever having to count calories or measure portions. Suddenly, snacking turns into a mindful, almost calming ritual. I usually tell my patients about 30 grams a day. That's roughly 49 pistachios. Choose unsalted or lightly salted if you can. And if arthritis or limited hand strength makes cracking them tough, look for varieties that naturally split open. Pistachios are rare because they deliver something most foods don't: dense nutrition, satisfying flavor, and therapeutic power in one small package. They support your heart, sharpen your eyesight, balance your blood sugar, and just as important, give you back a sense of control over your body. But here's the twist. While these 4 nuts can elevate your health after 60, there are others that can quietly tear it down. Nuts that look innocent, even healthy, but in reality they spark inflammation, raise blood pressure, interfere with medications, and feed the fog that clouds your mind. You deserve to know which ones they are, and in this next section, I'll show you exactly which nuts to avoid, and why they may be doing far more harm than good. Stay with me. This is where the truth takes a surprising turn. Peanuts, the hidden inflammation time bomb. I'll never forget the day George walked into my office, 72 years old, a proud Vietnam veteran, a man who prided himself on staying active. But lately, he said, something was off. His joints ached worse than usual. He was constantly drained, and his blood pressure had crept up despite no major changes to his lifestyle. As we went through his daily habits, one detail jumped out. He was snacking on peanuts almost every single day. "That's the problem, isn't it, Doc?" he asked me. That moment reminded me just how much confusion still surrounds foods we assume are harm. Less, especially peanuts. The truth is, peanuts aren't really nuts at all. They're legumes that grow underground. And that detail makes all the difference. Because of how they grow, peanuts are extremely prone to mold, specifically a toxin called aflatoxin. Here's the danger. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, but over time it can build up inside your body, damaging your liver, weakening your immune defenses, and even raising the risk of certain cancers. Seniors, whose detox systems naturally slow down with age, are especially vulnerable to this invisible threat. But that's not the only concern. Even if you're not allergic, peanuts can quietly trigger inflammatory responses in the body, a slow, smoldering kind of inflammation that erodes your joints, strains your heart, and clouds your brain. It doesn't show up overnight. It creeps in quietly, fueling arthritis flare-ups, mental fog, and cardiovascular stress. For older adults already battling stiffness and fatigue, peanuts can become fuel for the fire without them ever realizing it. And then, of course, there's the salt. Most peanuts sold in stores are roasted and heavily salted. For seniors, over 60% of whom already deal with high blood pressure, this added sodium only fans the flames. Add in the hydrogenated oils and sugars often found in commercial peanut butters, and you turn what seems like a harmless snack into a daily dose of danger. Even so-called natural peanut butter isn't off the hook. Peanuts are loaded with omega-6 fats, and that tips the delicate balance your body tries to maintain between omega-3s and omega-6s. That balance is the key switch that controls inflammation. Once it flips in the wrong direction, circulation suffers, memory falters, and your overall. And if you're taking medications, especially blood thinners, peanuts bring another hidden trap. They contain compounds, including vitamin K, that can interfere with how those drugs are absorbed. For men juggling multiple prescriptions, that makes an already complicated routine even harder to manage safely. Now, I'm not saying you should panic if you've had the occasional peanut, but if you're over 60 and they've become a daily habit, it's time to rethink. There are safer, smarter alternatives that give you the same satisfying crunch without the inflammatory fire or toxic risks. But to make them safe, they have to be heavily processed, steamed, roasted, peeled. But in that process, much of their natural nutrition is stripped away. What you're left with is a nut that tastes good, sure, but does little to support your health. In some cases, it can even cause harm. That's why I tell my patients over 60 to swap out cashews for safer, more functional choices like almonds or walnuts. Number 3, macadamia nuts, the silent driver of weight gain. I once had a patient named Carl. He was a retired engineer, around 60 years old, sharp mind, great sense of humor, very disciplined in his daily routines. But within a few short months, Carl began putting on weight, slowly, almost imperceptibly. His blood pressure crept up, and he often felt sluggish after meals. When we sat down to review his diet, he laughed and said, "Well, Doc, I don't eat much junk, but I do treat myself to a handful of macadamia nuts every night. They're supposed to be good for the heart, right?" That's when I knew we had to talk. Macadamias are luxurious, rich, buttery, silky in texture. They feel like the perfect healthy indulgence, and they're marketed that way, especially in high-end health food circles. But here's the truth most people don't realize. Especially as you age, macadamia nuts pack a massive punch of fat and calories in every bite. Just a single ounce, barely a handful, delivers almost 200 calories and 22 grams of fat. Now, for someone over 60 whose metabolism naturally slows down and who may already be less physically active, those calories pile up fast. You've just eaten the equivalent of a small meal without ever feeling full. I call this silent weight gain. It creeps in quietly. No sweets, no binges, just a slow, steady climb that's incredibly hard to reverse. And it's not just about the number on the scale. Macadamias are also among the highest in saturated fat. It's out 3 grams in that same small serving. That's the very type of fat that raises LDL cholesterol and puts extra strain on an aging heart. For seniors already managing cholesterol or blood pressure, this hidden fat doesn't just add nothing, it can actually undo hard-earned progress. Then there's the gallbladder. Many older adults develop gallstones without even knowing it. Maybe they feel some bloating here and there or mild discomfort after meals, nothing alarming. But macadamia nuts, because of their extremely high fat load, can trigger those stones to move, leading to painful attacks, ER visits, even surgery. I've seen it happen more than once. And don't forget dental health. Macadamias are dense and hard. For seniors with crowns, bridges, or sensitive teeth, chewing them can be risky. I've had patients crack dental work on these nuts, leading to painful, expensive repairs. I always tell my patients this: macadamia nuts may look like a small indulgence, but they carry a heavy price, a price that creeps in slowly and stays for years. There are far better nuts out there that satisfy without the baggage. But if macadamias weigh you down, the next nut on our list is far more dangerous. It's tiny, oily, often overlooked, but it can interfere with medications, distort your sense of taste, and even trigger dangerous weight loss in older adults. Most people have no idea how problematic it really is. Let's talk about it. Number 4, pine nuts, the medication disruptor. Several years ago, I had a patient named Ruth. She was 74, thoughtful, meticulous about her health. She took her medications on schedule, walked daily, loved experimenting with new recipes. Then one day, she came into my office with a strange complaint. "Doctor," she said, "everything tastes metallic, even water tastes off, and it's been this way for weeks." At first, we looked at her medications, her DJ, her hydration, everything checked out. But then she mentioned something she'd recently added to her diet, a homemade pesto loaded with pine nuts. That's when the light bulb went off. Ruth was experiencing what's known as pine nut syndrome, a bitter, metallic taste distortion that can last for days, sometimes weeks, after eating certain pine nuts. While not dangerous by itself, here's the hidden problem. When food and water suddenly taste unpleasant, many older adults unconsciously eat and drink less. And for someone already at risk of unintentional weight loss or dehydration, that so-called minor side effect can spiral into major consequences: frailty, nutrient deficiencies, even hospitalization. Taste matters far more than most people realize, especially later in life. But pine nuts don't stop there. One of the biggest concerns with this particular nut is its potential to interfere with common medications. As we get older, our bodies don't just change on the outside, they change on the inside in ways most men never hear about. Take pine nuts, for example. They look innocent, small, harmless, but hidden inside are compounds that can actually change the way your liver breaks down medications. I'm talking about blood pressure meds, cholesterol drugs, even antidepressants, 3 of the most common prescriptions for seniors. And here's the real danger. When pine nuts interfere, those pills can either stop working or trigger side effects no one warned you about. And that's not the only red flag. Pine nuts are loaded with delicate polyunsaturated fats. If they've sat too long on the shelf or weren't stored properly, those fats oxidize. Once they oxidize, they flip from healthy to inflammatory gasoline. For a man already dealing with arthritis, joint pain, or metabolic syndrome, that's like tossing fuel on a fire that's already burning. But here's the kicker. Most people don't even realize they're eating pine nuts. They're blended into sauces, baked into dishes, hiding in places you'd never expect. And there's one more hidden risk I've seen too. Many times in my own patients, the choking hazard. Pine nuts are tiny, slippery, and for men on meds that cause dry mouth or with age-related changes in swallowing reflexes, they can slip straight into the airway. What looks like a harmless snack can become a silent threat. That's why I urge my patients over 60 to skip pine nuts entirely. There are plenty of safer options that deliver flavor and healthy fats without playing Russian roulette with your health, because food should nourish you, protect you, not sabotage you. And here's what I've learned after decades sitting across from men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. Aging itself is not the enemy. The enemy is the small daily choices that slowly wear you down or slowly rebuild you. Even something as simple as a handful of nuts can tip the balance. That's why today I've given you my verdict on 8 of the most common nuts. 4. I want every senior man to eat daily Brazil nuts, almonds, walnuts, and pistachios, not because they're trendy, not because they're sold in some shiny health food aisle, but because they work. They keep your thyroid firing, your testosterone steady, your brain sharp, your sleep deeper, and your heart strong. And then there are 4 others I tell my patients to avoid: peanuts, cashews, macadamias, and pine nuts, because instead of building you up, they quietly tear you down. They spark inflammation, disrupt your meds, jack up your blood sugar, or pack on the wrong kind of weight. And the cruel part? They're marketed as healthy. They're sold as safe. But after 60, your body doesn't play by the same rules anymore. What once gave you energy can now leave you exhausted. What once passed through easily can now trigger problems you'd never connect to your diet. And let me say this clearly, not just as a physician, but as someone who's watched people I care about struggle in silence. You are not broken. You are not too old. Your health is not a lost cause. The body you woke up in today still listens. It still responds. And sometimes it responds in ways that feel almost miraculous if you give it the right tools. I've seen it in the man who swapped peanuts for pistachios and watched his blood pressure fall without adding a single new prescription. I think back to the woman who started eating just 1 Brazil nut a day and finally felt her energy come back, or the couple who began snacking on walnuts in the evening, and for the first time in months, they both slept straight through the night. That's not magic. That's not a miracle. That's biology. That's your body doing exactly what it was built to do. when you finally give it the right fuel. So tomorrow morning, when you walk into your kitchen, or later this week as you pass the snack aisle, stop for a second. Think about what you've learned here. Make a deliberate choice. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. But pick one thing and keep choosing it. That's how real change begins. Because this isn't just about a cholesterol number or a blood pressure chart. It's about waking up steady on your feet. It's about remembering the neighbor's name when he stops by. It's about having the energy to take a walk, to laugh, to hold someone's hand just a little longer. It's about staying in the game, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and yes, even intimately. I'm Dr. Mark Taver, MD, and I want you to hear me clearly. You are not too old to feel strong again. You are not too far gone to reclaim your energy, your clarity, your confidence. All your body needs is the right building blocks, and it will meet you more than halfway. So start simple. Start with nuts. Let that be the signal to your body and to yourself that you're ready to thrive again.